Upon arriving at the desired high-rise condo building, I approached the concierge and was handed the keys to the room. Taking the elevator reserved for the upper floors, I headed to the top-floor condo.
Wow, this is lovely!
My sister-in-law, the first to burst in, exclaimed as she danced around the room. Let's get unpacked. I suggested, but no one offered to help. As expected, it was annoying. The movers brought in the boxes and placed them where I directed. I started unpacking alone.
I'll take the master suite.
The daughter-in-law gets the storage. My in-laws decided without my input, but I ignored them and continued working.
What a lovely place. Perfect for a final home. We're so lucky.
Ethan and his family said, all smiles.
Living in a place like this is like a dream.
My sister-in-law said, teary-eyed. It might be time to clear things up. Oh. Whose house are you talking about?
What?
My name is Anna Kernel, a 32-year-old freelance illustrator. I used to work for a major publishing company but went independent. Now, I mainly take on work from my former employer while starting a career as a children's book author. I married Ethan 2 years ago and started living together in the condo I was already in. We live here because it's my own place, and Ethan moved in from his rental. My parents died in a car accident when I was young. Raised by my grandparents, I purchased this place after graduating from college and starting a job. The payment was covered by the settlement and insurance money from my parents' accident. My grandparents raised me without touching that money and gave it to me when I graduated, for my use. I bought this condo when my grandparents moved into a care facility. They had planned to move there after raising me, not wanting me to go through the hassle of caregiving. After some thought, I chose this condo because it was convenient for work and visiting my grandparents' facility. They suggested I use the money for something else, but this felt like the best use to me. I've lived here for nearly 10 years now. About the same time I spent with my parents and then with my grandparents. I have spent 1/3 of my life in this house. It's a third of my life, a place I've grown quite fond of. I met Ethan at a friend's wedding after party. He was a colleague of my friend's husband. At a friend's wedding after party, I met a bunch of people around my age, and we formed a group that started hanging out together. Eventually, some couples formed within the group, and a few even got married. Ethan and I were one of those couples. Ethan was a lively guy, always making any room brighter just by being there. I was attracted to him from the first time I met him. I admired his cheerful nature, something I felt I lacked, and thought he was a wonderful person. However, that was just the side of Ethan I saw before we got married. I soon discovered his other side. While dating, Ethan was a perfect gentleman, but he turned out to be the type who doesn't feed the fish once it's caught. Actually, it was worse than that. He seemed to want to take advantage of the situation. Since I'm living in your house, you should be the one paying the bills. What do you mean? Well, the expenses would be the same whether I'm here or not, right? So, you should just keep paying what you've been paying. Sounds fair, doesn't it? Indeed, I had already paid off my condo, and there was no mortgage left. But there were still maintenance fees, a repair fund, and property taxes. Plus, I was paying for a parking spot since I had a car. So, you'd be paying those expenses whether I'm here or not, right? That's true, but then there's no problem with you continuing to pay for them. His logic seemed sound at first, but felt unfair upon reflection. But Ethan, you're going to be living here too. We agreed to split the living expenses. I really wish you'd contribute, I said. Ethan's response was harsh.
You're so greedy. A real money grubber. I never thought you were that kind of woman.
I was shocked and speechless. I had assumed that as a married couple, we would be equals and share the expenses of our home. I'm not saying I won't pay a single penny. I'll pay for half of what I use, but you're the owner of this house, right? So, he meant that since it's my property, I should bear the costs. I'll pay for my own needs, and that should be good enough, right? He said, and I reluctantly agreed to his demands. At first, Ethan did pay half the living expenses. But only the amount I asked for. The electricity bill was this much this month. That's pretty high. Aren't you wasting money working from home? I had quit my job to become a freelance worker during our relationship. Though I sometimes went out for meetings and other engagements, most of my work was done from home. This doesn't seem fair. Ethan started to complain about the utility bills. What's not fair? Well, think about it. I'm out working all day, and I have to pay for your share of the electricity while you're working from home? What an argument. I was so flabbergasted I couldn't respond. I only use a bit of electricity when I get home until I go to bed, so I shouldn't have to pay half, right? Ethan said, and from then on, he paid only a tiny amount. He applied the same logic to the gas and water bills. I tolerated this at the time. Indeed, Ethan was only home for a short time each day. While the utility costs increased with an additional person, it was impossible to determine precisely who used what. Despite his complaints, Ethan was still sharing the living expenses, so I silently accepted his reasoning. Looking back, I can't believe how foolish I was, but at that moment, I thought it was unavoidable. I decided it was better to endure this and have a peaceful married life rather than fight over something as trivial as money. Apart from the money issues, Ethan was the same bright and fun person he was before we got married. Of course, the financial issues were always at the back of my mind, but we weren't struggling for money, and I thought it was more important to spend pleasant times together. However, that supposed happiness began to feel precarious. More overtime today, I really wish they'd stop. Ethan grumbled, coming home later and later. Are you okay with all that overtime? There are guidelines, you know. The Department of Labor says anything over 45 hours a month is risky.
You don't get it. Those are just numbers for show. A good salesman doesn't just work the hours he clocks in.
Ethan replied dismissively. You must have pulled all-nighters when a deadline was looming, right, Anna? Yes, that's true. That's my point. Don't be fooled by just the numbers. I graduated from an art college and worked as an illustrator. So I really didn't know much about sales jobs. I had no choice but to believe him. Okay, but please don't overdo it. I know. You're so kind, Anna. I won't overdo it. He said, gently hugging my shoulder. I tried to believe in Ethan's kindness. As if it were the only way to keep my heart at ease. A year passed with Ethan slowly betraying me bit by bit. People can react to sudden pain, but it seems they become numb when the pain is gradual. The accumulated betrayals of Ethan had grown significantly, yet I felt I was just enduring a little every day. In other words, I was turning a blind eye to maintain peace. Then, suddenly, a major event happened. My family's coming over to stay, is that okay? Ethan asked one morning out of the blue. Your dad and mom? And my sister too. I had visited Ethan's parents' house in the countryside once before we got married. The in-laws' home was a small house in the countryside. It was an old house with many signs of wear and tear, where his parents lived alone. At that time, I couldn't meet his sister as she had already married and moved out. I tried to contact her, but she couldn't come due to other commitments and just sent her regards. We didn't have a wedding ceremony, we just took some photos, so the only time I met Ethan's parents was then. Of course, I hadn't had a chance to meet his sister either. Our friends threw us a celebration party, but I hadn't met any of Ethan's relatives since then. I didn't think much of it, as I didn't have much interaction with my own relatives either. Now, Ethan's parents and sister were suddenly coming to visit. It made sense, considering we'd been married for a year, they might want to see how we were doing. I didn't question Ethan's words and agreed. A week later, Ethan's family arrived as planned. This is Ethan's house? It's not very big. It was the first thing his family said as they entered. Of course, it wasn't very large. It was a house I bought to live in alone originally. It's a 3-bedroom condo with spacious living and dining area. One bedroom is mostly for guests, and I used the other rooms as a workroom and bedroom. When Ethan moved in, he wanted a space to work from home too, so I gave up my workroom for his study, and now I work in the living room. It's plenty big for 2 people to live in without any inconvenience. As I was thinking this, Ethan's sister, whom I was meeting for the first time, came in. Really, it's smaller than I thought. Are we all going to live here? It's small, but bear with it. You can get used to any place. Well, it's better than nothing. I'll make do with living here. How long do they plan to stay? I wondered vaguely. Then Ethan, sounding annoyed, ordered me around.
Hey, what are you daydreaming for? Hurry up and bring in Dad and Mom's stuff.
Oh, right, sorry. Which bags are theirs? I expected something like overnight bags, so I looked inside the entrance but found nothing. What are you looking at? They're outside. In a panic, I looked in the hallway and saw about 10 cardboard boxes stacked up. Cardboard boxes for a visit to their son's house? I didn't understand, but leaving them in the hallway would inconvenience other residents. Fortunately, none of the boxes were too heavy, and I managed to carry them all into the living room by myself. Our living and dining area is quite spacious, so although it was crowded, I managed to find space for the boxes. During this time, Ethan and his family were sitting and talking.
Once you're done with the bags, make tea.
Hurry up, everyone's tired. I couldn't think straight in such a situation and just reacted to Ethan's words. Really, what an inconsiderate wife. I'm worried about the future. I'll sleep in this room, his sister declared, claiming our bedroom for herself while I was making tea. That's fine, I'll sleep with Mom and Dad in the guest room.
It'll be nice to sleep with Ethan again after so long. Just like old times.
Ethan and his family acted as if I didn't exist, enjoying their family time. In our house, there's only the master bedroom, the guest room, and what's now Ethan's study, originally my workroom. I wonder where I'm supposed to sleep. And how long will this kind of living go on? It seems humans can't think straight when faced with situations far beyond their usual reality. While I stood there dumbfounded, everything had already changed. The next day, or rather, the moment Ethan's family barged in, the worst kind of living began. Hey, isn't the food ready yet? I'm sorry, I'm preparing it now. You're really slow. I don't know how Ethan puts up with a wife like you. Ethan's family just lounged around the house all day, doing nothing. And treated me like a servant. At first, I thought it was just a matter of enduring a few days, putting on a good wife act. But as I overheard Ethan and his family's conversations, I realized this was intended to be permanent, and that woke me up. Here's the summary of what I learned. Ethan's family had fled from their hometown. The reason was that Ethan's sister had returned home after a divorce. The cause of the divorce was her infidelity. She had affairs with several people, and it all came out. She was being sued for alimony by her ex-husband and the wives of her lovers, and they had to flee here because they couldn't afford to pay. Ethan had told me his family's house was owned by them, but that was a lie. The house originally belonged to his mother's parents, where they lived. Ethan's parents, who had no means of supporting themselves, moved in, and after his grandparents passed away, they just stayed put. The real owner was Ethan's mother's brother, who had been asking them to leave for years, but they stayed, claiming residency rights. Ethan's uncle had his own house and, despite wanting them out, couldn't bring himself to forcibly evict his sister's family. But when Ethan's sister brought home a mountain of alimony debts, his parents decided to sell the house to get money. That was the last straw for Ethan's uncle, who threatened legal action, so they grabbed what they could and fled to our house. Those 10 cardboard boxes they brought, the ones I struggled to bring into the house the day they arrived, that's all they own. I don't know, nor do I want to know what's inside, but it's clear there's nothing of significant value. In short, Ethan's family is penniless. And has rolled into our house planning to leech off us indefinitely. Ethan, miraculously, was the smart one in the family. He was good at studies, received scholarships, and graduated from college. To an outsider, he wouldn't seem part of such a family. He kept up the act of a refreshing, good young man, landed a job at a fairly well-known company, and then married me. I had no way of seeing through Ethan's true nature or his family's real situation. I was alone, with no parents. I was working and owning my own house. To Ethan, I must have seemed like easy prey. No joke. Now that I know everything, I have no intention of quietly playing the slave. I wasn't going to let this good-for-nothing family walk all over me. I started thinking about how to fight back and began taking action the next day. For now, I had to act compliant. I couldn't let Ethan or his family catch on to my plan. I'd let them think they had the upper hand and then strike when they least expected it. Just as they had suddenly shown up at my house, I would take sudden action too. I continued to nod along to whatever Ethan's family said, and about a week later, Ethan's sister approached me with a demand. "Give me some money," she said, thrusting her open hand forward. Such a straightforward approach to mooching. I was furious, but I had decided not to resist for now. I handed her a few bills. "That's it? Don't you have more?" "I'm sorry, I didn't expect this and don't have more on me." "Then just give me your card." "No way. If I gave her my card, there's no telling what she would do with it. I can't lend you my card. I'll withdraw some money from the bank tomorrow, please wait until then." I somehow managed to silence the complaining family with this promise. I had no intention of ever giving them my card. That night, Ethan complained about it when he got home. "You could at least lend them your card." "You're really greedy." I couldn't believe his audacity, but I had my reasons, so I apologized. "I'm sorry. I thought it might cause problems if something happened." "What do you mean something?" "Well, if your mom and others get arrested for misusing a card under a different name, it would be scary." Ethan seemed satisfied with this explanation. "Then make them a family card." "I'm counting on you." "Okay, I understand." I agreed, but of course, I had no intention of doing so. About a month later, Ethan asked about the family card. His family must have pestered him because they were tired of asking me for money and wanted the card quickly. "I'm sorry, but it seems I can't make one." I feigned disappointment. I hadn't applied for a family card, and I wasn't disappointed at all. "Why not?" "They say your family is only considered relatives, not immediate family, so they can't approve it." Apparently, it doesn't work since they're only living here temporarily. Ethan's family had just moved in without any formal process. They haven't transferred their residency, so it's not considered a permanent living situation. I see. Ethan seemed to have no choice but to accept this. "Well then, they can just transfer our residency." "No kidding, we're going to live here for a while anyway. Go take care of the paperwork right away." They demanded of me, as if I were their servant. "About that, I think this house is a bit too small for us to live in permanently." "You know, you might be right. Maybe that's why Ethan hasn't been coming home much lately." I added, noticing Ethan looking a bit annoyed. "I've been staying at a hotel because of all the late-night work." "Oh, that must be tough, thanks for your hard work." "So, I was thinking, why don't we move out of this house?" Ethan and his family were shocked by my suggestion. This place was originally bought for me to live alone, and it's been okay for Ethan and me, but it's a bit cramped with all of us now. Makes sense. "Look at this. Wouldn't you love to live in a house like this?" I showed them the brochure of a new house. It was a new tower condominium in the secondary city center. The photos were of the top-floor condo. Spacious, with large windows offering a panoramic view of the city below. "Where did you get a condo like this?" "I thought it was too cramped as it is, so I decided to take a leap. I sold this place and added my parents' inheritance and savings to buy it." "Well, it's not bad here, but that place is obviously better." They quickly agreed, their eyes lighting up when they realized the payment was already completed. "Not bad thinking for once. I'm starting to respect you. I might just acknowledge you as our daughter-in-law." Ethan's parents smiled, nodding in agreement. And just like that, the move was settled. About a month later, the moving day arrived. I felt a bit sad to leave the house I'd lived in for years, but it was for a brighter future. After loading the trucks with our belongings, we took 2 taxis to the new place. Arriving at the tower condominium, the concierge handed me the keys to the condo. We took the elevator reserved for the upper floors to the top floor condo.
Wow, this is amazing.
Ethan's sister was the first to rush in, exclaiming excitedly as she looked around. "Let's get unpacked," I suggested, but nobody offered to help. As expected, it was annoying. The movers brought the boxes to the designated spots, and I started unpacking alone.
I want the master suite. The daughter-in-law gets the storage.
Ethan's family decided, but I ignored them and continued working.
This is truly a lovely condo. Perfect for a final home. Lucky us.
Ethan and his family said to each other, all smiles.
Living in a house like this is like a dream.
Ethan's sister said tearfully. It seemed like the right time for the big reveal. Huh? Whose house are you talking about? What? It was the perfect moment to bring them back to reality. Why would you think you're living here? What do you mean? It's our new house. We're obviously going to live here.
What?
I feigned surprise. This isn't your house. I bought this house to live with my grandparents.
You asked if we wanted to live in a house like this.
Ethan's sister started to make a scene. Yes, I did ask that, but I only asked if you wanted to live here. I never said you could. Exactly as I said, I never mentioned living together. Who would want to live with these people forever? So, you all need to leave this house now.
I'm the owner, and I'm telling you to leave before things get complicated.
Please just go quietly.
No way!
Ethan stomped his feet in anger.
You're supposed to just listen to me. My family and I will live in this house. If you don't like it, you can leave. Yes, get out. That's right.
They all chimed in, trying to force me out. I contacted the concierge directly through the in-house intercom.
Sorry to bother you, but there are some strange people in my house refusing to leave. They're even trying to kick me out, the resident. Please come quickly.
As I finished speaking, a siren blared inside the room.
What's that? So loud. Turn it off right now.
The security guards arrived promptly, befitting a high-end condominium.
These are the building's security guards. If you don't leave now, I'll have to call the police.
When the guards asked what was happening over the intercom at the entrance, Ethan's family started to panic. They realized I wasn't lying. The guards arrived, but Ethan's family began to beg, almost crawling on the floor, asking them to listen. I decided to hear them out, curious about what Ethan had been telling his family. Apparently, Ethan had described me as a pitiful woman with no relatives, saying that I couldn't live without him and that he was just letting me stay in the room so I can use it freely, just like a housemaid, Ethan told his family. I decided to show some mercy to his family who had given me valuable testimony. Actually, every time I gave them money, I made them sign a paper with the amount, essentially creating a promissory note. I need evidence that I've given the money to Ethan. Otherwise, I get scolded. If you sign, I can give you as much as you need. Believing they'd get more money if they signed, Ethan's family readily agreed, providing me with proof of how much I lent them. I had planned to collect from his family, but realizing they couldn't possibly pay it back, I decided it was better to collect from Ethan and evict them from the condo. Thanks to you, I've been helped a lot. If you leave now, I'll consider this as never happened. But if you come back, I'll make you pay everything. I waved the promissory notes at them, and they finally gave up and left.
I'm Anna's husband. I have a right to live here. I won't leave.
Ethan was the only one who refused to budge. If he wanted to talk that badly, I was ready. Fine, let's talk.
But if you try anything funny, I'll call them right back.
I thanked the guards and sent them away for the moment.
Why are you doing this? You hate my family that much?
Of course.
They just barged in here out of the blue, treating me like a slave.
I sharply told Ethan. Fine. I'll tell my family to leave, but I can stay, right? He was willing to abandon his family just to stay here himself. What a terrible man. No, you're leaving too.
Why? We're married.
I presented Ethan with a file.
What's this?
He turned pale as he looked through it. Such a lovely young lady. I hear you've been living with her half the week lately. It was evidence of Ethan's infidelity. Photos of him arm in arm with another woman, entering hotels together. Ethan had started seeing her right after marrying me. You were planning to leave me and live with her in this condo.
That's a lie. Who would say such a thing?
I turned on the voice recorder I was holding. The voice of Ethan's mistress filled the room, and he froze. The evidence had been gathered by a private investigator who approached the woman. He told her Ethan was married, and recorded what she said. She proudly claimed that once Ethan divorced me, they would live together in his condo. Ethan had told her that I refused to agree to a divorce and that he was tired of being bossed around by his family. The woman believed she was the only one Ethan loved, that his relationship with his wife was over. But when she realized she was talking to a private investigator, she panicked and started defending herself. Claiming she had been deceived by Ethan, believing their marriage was truly over. She begged to be forgiven for the alimony, promising to tell everything. When the private investigator asked what to do, I told him to decide based on what she said. She ended up spilling more than we asked for, all of which was recorded. Turns out, so-called true love can be quite fragile. Got the evidence. Looks like this could lead to a hefty alimony. Ethan collapsed weakly to the floor.
Your stuff has been sent to that woman's condo. You can live there from today.
Now, please leave. I called the concierge again and had Ethan, still in a state of collapse, removed. As promised, I decided to spare the mistress from paying alimony. Her testimony had proven Ethan's malice. Thanks to her, I was able to get a substantial alimony from Ethan. It was more than enough even after letting her off. However, I did inform her parents and employer about the situation. There was no promise of silence, so it was fair game to talk. The mistress turned out to be Ethan's co-worker. They got close while working together. And it would have been a fine story if not for the marriage. I complained to the company about their employee training, as it led to my divorce. They apologized for their lack of supervision, made her resign under the guise of voluntary resignation, and demoted Ethan, transferring him to a subsidiary. The two had been lying about business trips to go to hotels and travel together. It was only natural they faced consequences for harming the company. Rumor has it Ethan's family is now actually living in that woman's condo. It's your fault this happened, take responsibility, they told Ethan and the woman, squatting in the condo they're living in. Ethan and the mistress had to take out loans to pay me the alimony. Now they're barely scraping by, paying off their debts. I guess she'll soon get tired of his family and kick them out. Ethan thought I was just a pitiful woman burdened with grandparents in a facility, but the truth was a bit different. My grandparents were indeed in a facility, but it was a luxurious one for wealthy people to live in comfort. They used to run a company and retired after handing it over to a trusted person, as my parents passed away young. It was the year I graduated from college. I loved drawing since childhood and won many awards. I told my grandparents I wanted to work in art, so they didn't force me to take over the company. They decided to enter the facility to let me live freely. I pursued a career related to art and am now becoming known as a children's book author. My books have become hits, making me somewhat famous. It seems like my luck turned around after divorcing Ethan. He must be regretting it now. I used the money from selling the old condo, my parents' inheritance, and my book royalties to buy the new condo. I wanted to live with my grandparents again while they were still healthy. Of course, I'm keeping the facility as an option for when they might need more care. But for now, they're still very healthy. Thanks to my book sales, I can finally give back to them. We'll live happily together for a while longer. I had a bit of a hard time thanks to falling for that guy, but my future is bright and open.